Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IndieZone here on YouTube. My name is Kathy. One of the most widely debated and even hotly contested issues in the Idaho versus Kohberger case centers on the matter of confidential informants. There have been multiple documents filed on the public record that addresses the matter of confidential informants and the need to seal documents from the public view to protect them. The most recent one was just filed the 18th of December 2024 by the State of Idaho. And it is a stipulated motion, meaning it was agreed to by the defense that these documents should be sealed. It's state's supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert testimony. And one of the reasons of the 5 given by the State of Idaho in this stipulated motion is that release or disclosure of the documents they want sealed would, not could, not might, not should, but would disclose the identity of a confidential source. And if you go to page 2 of that December 18th filing, you will see this reason given. We have a question that's currently on the community page where we will pose questions to test our knowledge of the court records in the Idaho 4 case dealing with this issue of confidential informants and who are they? Who is the only group that has ever been identified as informants in the case. If you haven't yet taken an opportunity to test your knowledge on that quiz, I recommend that you turn off this presentation, go to the community page, take the quiz, and then come back, because this is a spoiler alert. We're going to give the answer to that question. The answer to the question regarding confidential informants can be found in the 32-page court order signed by Judge John Judge while this matter was still pending in Latah County prior to change of venue last September 2024 to Ada County. It is the October 25th, 2023 order addressing IgG DNA an order for in-camera review. This came about following a motion to compel discovery that Mr. Kohberger filed in the case and some objections that the state raised, which then led to a hearing where both sides gave oral argument, and now this order. This order is entitled Order Addressing IgG DNA and Order for In-Camera Review. The introduction section, page 1, says, on November 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were found murdered. As part of law enforcement's investigation into the homicides, the FBI employed the use of investigative genetic genealogy, IgG, using DNA located on a K-bar knife sheath found at the crime scene. And just by way of background, ladies and gentlemen, the very first item on the Idaho 4 court docket is the Affidavit of Probable Cause signed under penalty of perjury by Detective Brett Payne of the Moscow Police Department. It led directly to Mr. Kohberger's arrest. In it, amongst the other matters that were described in that 18-page document, Detective Payne stated that, of course, Moscow Police Department had jurisdiction over investigation into the crimes because the crimes occurred at 1122 King Road in Moscow. But Detective Payne stated that Moscow police invited in other agencies to assist them. The FBI was one of them. The second notation in the PCA is where Detective Payne describes that he went up. He was accompanied by Officer Smith through 1122 King Road. Upon his arrival on November 13th, 2022, they went up to the third floor. He stated that in Madison Mogen's bedroom, which was located on the third floor of that house, that a K-bar knife sheath was found on the bed. And that is where Madison and Kaylee Goncalves were also very tragically found. The order continues. Through the IgG process, the FBI constructed a family tree of individuals whose DNA matched with the DNA found on the knife sheath. The FBI then sent local law enforcement a tip to investigate defendant Brian Kohberger. Kohberger was arrested on December 30th, 2022, and charged with 4 counts of unaliving in the first degree and 1 count of burglary. Now, I'll direct your attention to page 28 of the order. It says here under number 6, Rule 16G2, governing informants. State here argues that the genetic genealogy services in the individuals related to Kohberger, whose profiles matched defendant's SNP profile, are, quote, informants whose identities are protected from disclosure under Idaho Criminal Rule 16G2 and Idaho Rule of Evidence 509A, and that disclosure must not be required of an informant's identity unless the informant is to be produced as a witness at a hearing or trial, subject to any protective order under subsection 1 of this rule or disclosure order under subsection B6 of this rule. And here the court is quoting from ICR 16G2 and then goes on to address further legal authority. So here what happens is the state is not wanting the names of the individuals from that family tree to be disclosed to Mr. Kohberger, because this is a motion to compel this discovery, because the state is arguing that these individuals are informants as defined by Idaho law. If we go to the next page, the conclusion section, it says here, page 30, for the reasons articulated above, the court finds that Kohberger has made the requisite showing, and this is on his motion to compel, ladies and gentlemen, that at least some of the sought-after evidence, 1, is material to the preparation of the defense, 2, encompasses results or reports of scientific tests or experiments made in connection with the case, 3, may include reports and memoranda that were made by police officers or investigator in connection with the investigation, and 4, may be of substantial need in the preparation of the defendant's case. Then the court goes on and says, however, the court understands the state's concerns with the identities of unknown relatives being made public and acknowledges the need for the issuance of protective orders. The state's argument that the IgG investigation is wholly irrelevant since it was not used in obtaining any warrants and will not be used at trial is well supported. You can go on to read the rest of this order for yourself, but basically what the court did here is ordered an in-camera review. That means a review of this IgG information for the court's eyes only before further rulings would be made as to what would be released to Mr. Kohberger and what would not be released to Mr. Kohberger, particularly as it relates to these informants, as the state of Idaho has referenced them. Now, is there a possibility that there's traditional confidential informants, which the court describes elsewhere in this order. These informants that the state's talking about may not be the traditional sort of informants that's discussed in this order. The traditional type of informants that people may think of are those individuals who may have witnessed with personal knowledge the crimes. Maybe they have been charged with other crimes themselves, and in return for providing information to the state, they're going to then possibly receive a reduction in whatever charges are pending against them. That's happened in other criminal cases across the country. We're not saying it happened here. We have no evidence that it has. But just acknowledging the fact as an opinion provided under the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Yes, of course there could be other sorts of informants in this case, but the bottom line is that the only confidential informants that the state of Idaho has ever admitted to are the members of the family tree associated with this IgG data evaluation scientific information. If you would like to review this order in its entirety, I've provided, as I said, a link, and you can do so yourself. This will now conclude this episode of the IndieZone here on YouTube. Thank you for joining us here today.